that we're, in this regard, that is a brand for us to take to market, but the point that we want to get across is we are building this capacity and capability for all of our GPUs across all of the markets. And in some cases, we will go to market as the Performance Institute. In other cases, we will go to market as RG with this capability, whatever suits our needs in that particular circumstance. And so what we're going to be talking about today is the development of our capacity and capabilities around strategic performance management for both uses. To start things off, it's the standard table of contents that if you all have called into other state of the practice discussions that we are starting to use for all of these discussions. We're going to talk about the practice at a glance, just to kind of let you know what's in this practice. We're going to talk about our position and posture in the market and our relationship to our competitors. Talk about some key customer-facing initiatives and how we're getting out into the market to get people familiar with our capabilities and competencies. We're also going to touch on some key ongoing internal programs that are aimed at building our capacity and capability internally within Robbins-Joya and PI. And then some risks that we see to building this capacity and capability, as well as to selling it out in the market and some of the mitigation strategies that we're putting in place. So with that, and you'll see our color coding here if you've called into other state of the practice discussions, is really where do we think we're doing pretty well, but knowing that we can always improve. Where are we moving forward, but there's some things we really need to work on, and then where do we have some big areas of focus that we need to work on. So to start a practice, let's talk about the practice at a glance. So we're talking about the strategic performance management practice, and our mission within this practice is to improve government results by applying knowledge that transforms organizations. And our vision is that Robbins-Joya and PI are who the government thinks of first when they want to achieve strategic outcomes. So we want the government to turn to us to achieve strategic outcomes. When they're facing a big issue, a big problem, we want them immediately to think of, we need to get Robbins-Joya in here to help with this. And that's our long-term vision, that 5-10 years down the road, that is the way government, both at the federal, state, and local level, think about Robbins-Joya and the Performance Institute. We need them in here because we need to make a big change and get a strategic outcome for our customers and the taxpayers. So as we work towards that vision, I've been asked to take the leadership role and help move us towards that vision. And to help me with that, I have two of my colleagues that are also practice leads, and that's Shelley Rappaport on the left and Tom DeBridney on the right. Not that you guys were going to get them confused. But together, the three of us are working to build the internal capability for all of the folks on the phone. So if you have any questions after this discussion, feel free to reach out to any of us. Both Shelley and Tom have worked in the performance management arena for 15 to 20 years. Myself, I've worked in this arena both within government and then as a consultant for now close to 30 years, focused on performance management in government. One of the key things that certifications that PI offers and is a key certification for our clients in this area is a certification that PI created and administers, and it's called the Government Performance Manager Certificate. So one of the things that I said when I took the leadership role is we all need to have that certification. Everyone that's a member of PI needs to have that certification. So we are making sure that every member of this team goes through every course within the certification program and then takes the test at the end or does a capstone project so that we can rightfully give everybody the Government Performance Management certification. So we are, as time permits, monitoring each other's courses and auditing each other's courses and working towards getting that certification behind everyone's name. It should be noted that anybody in RG that chooses to can participate in this certification program as well. And if you're interested, just reach out to myself, Shelley, or Tom, and then over time you could take the courses that are required for that certification as well. So that is open to everyone as it makes sense for your personal development. Now, what do we include in strategic performance management? We are in the process of revamping the service offerings that have been used in the past, and the list that I just brought up is still pending. We are looking at it to see if we can combine some things and make it pretty straightforward so that as we build solutions going forward with all the other practice areas, that the services are very easily understood and not duplicative. So we are in the final stages of trying to finalize this group of service offerings that will be under strategic performance management. But as you can see the list as it stands right now, the types of things that this practice is actively working to develop the capacity and capability for is strategic planning and facilitation around planning, performance measurement development, and many organizations use the balanced scorecard to capture their measures. So the combination of those two things, this is something that we do a lot of in the market, as well as we do a lot of strategic planning in the market, both at department levels, but predominantly at component levels of organizations, such as right now under USDA, we're doing strategic planning with Food Safety Inspection Service, as an example. We also get involved in, once folks have their performance measures, is doing the performance analysis, reporting performance, and monitoring performance. As part of that, we get into performance report design and development. And for instance, with Food Safety Inspection Service, we just help them revamp their annual performance report, which is mandated by legislation, to make it more informative, to tell their story better, and to incorporate infographics so that it's easier for the reader to digest. We help organizations develop their dashboards, and throughout all of this, as we're looking at performance measures, we are often asked to, how do I stand up to somebody else? So we're getting into benchmarking and best practices as well. And we're in the process of developing a benchmarking course right now, a one-day course. When we start out, our clients are looking for how am I doing around performance management, and so we have developed an assessment that we can do on all the component parts of performance management and help organizations develop a roadmap for how they can better manage their overarching performance and the execution of their strategies. And then another area that we are getting into is program evaluation and program assessments. We actually just won a BPA with USAID under the State Department to go out and assess how various developing countries are utilizing the money that the United States gives them to reach strategic outcomes. And the process of doing that is program evaluation. Now, program evaluation is a very long-term technique and uses a lot of statistical analysis and is a very structured science. The reason why we've called this service offering program assessment is many organizations are finding it takes too long to see if they're moving towards their desired outcomes, so they are starting to build more interim, light versions of program evaluation, and so we've termed that program assessment here. But as I said, these are pending. We are still looking at them to clean them up, but that gives you a sense for some of the things that some of the capabilities and capacity within this practice as current. So one of the things that we are doing across the company is assessing what our total capability is within these service offerings. Since we haven't finalized the service offerings, we do not have the talent matrix. We haven't done the survey of all employees at RG to see what our overarching capacity and capability is across RG yet. So that is pending. So that is why we have it as a red. We are planning to do that once we finalize the service offerings. So that's a little bit of an overview of the practice, and if there's any questions, feel free to raise your hand. I'm not quite sure how I get those, Tiffany, but I'm sure you'll let me know.
There are no questions so far.
Okay, thanks. So let's look at the competitor analysis and our position and posture. So when we look at the market, we see three buckets of competitors. And the first bucket is large firms. We said accounting firms in particular, because most of the accounting firms hit on, coming from a financial background, they absolutely get involved with performance management. The accounting firms usually have specialty practices around strategy, performance management, and in particular, they also have that in the public sector. So we are constantly coming up against that large-scale capability. And they usually have the wherewithal to have a diversity of contract vehicles and government-wide contracts where they can, their rates are actually usually a little bit higher, but they can get competitive when they need to. The next bucket of competitors are niche consulting firms and think tanks. So, and especially this goes for PI, the PI brand, is we're often compared to smaller mid-sized firms or think tanks such as the Partnership for Public Service or the National Academy of Public Administration. And so with the PI brand, we're thought of in that regard. The PI brand actually brings Robbins Joya a great competitive advantage because PI is recognized in the market and even has the term performance in its name, which gives us a little leg up on some other companies that haven't branded them around the performance word, such as you can see Enlighteneering in here and Kaiser Associates as examples. So it doesn't stick out as much. People see the Performance Institute and immediately it gives us some branding there. So that's helpful. At times, there are FFRDCs out there, such as MITRE, who get involved in strategy and performance management. They're brought in because they're trusted, perceived to be trusted advisors, and they're brought in for research around strategic needs of a department. And in those cases, the organizations can go directly to them, and they don't have to compete that. So there's a competitive advantage for them there. So MITRE gets brought in for a lot of strategic planning and performance management work, for instance. Lastly, there's technology companies. So in particular, there's software companies such as Tableau, MicroStrategy, ClearPoint that do dashboarding and show results around performance measurement with, fun pictures where you can do drill downs. A lot of times those companies don't do the services associated with the implementation, and they'll bring in partners. Sometimes they do it themselves as well. This is an untapped area for us. You'll see later that we are talking to several companies because this could be another business development channel for us. So while we do compete in some cases, we could actively partner as well. And we'll be working on that towards, as we move forward. So what are some of the market trends that are going on in the strategic performance management area? Well, one of the things that we have going for us is that there is legislation that says that departments have to do this. So the Government Performance and Results Act, Modernization Act of 2010, which was the continuation of the Government Performance and Results Act from the 1990s, had set out new requirements that organizations have to execute, as well as the Office of Management and Budget, A11 guidance, and in particular Part 6. And in this, there are things that organizations have to do, and in some cases, they don't have the capability to do it internally. So that helps present an opportunity for us to help these organizations. And in many cases, our work comes from organizations having to do this and not having the internal capacity or capability at this time. In this legislation and guidance, for instance, all existing strategic plans are mandated to be updated right after the election. So they have to be updated by February 2017. This will create a surge of folks potentially needing outside facilitation help. And so we're actively working to find ways to get ourselves positioned to take advantage of that. Some of the other things that are going to drive this market are new management reform recommendations, likely coming from a new administration. So this is something that in my past life, we set up whole practices to capture some of those new reforms management reforms coming out as a new president took office. In this case, the Performance Institute over the last several administrations has worked to shape those reforms. And we're doing that again this year through our program called Transitions in Governance 2016. And it's a set of policy forums around various topics that we expect there to be management reforms on that are basically good government topics, such as IT management, acquisition, performance management, human capital management. And we're going to bring together experts in each of these areas from past administrations, from the current administration, to ask them what's worked in the past, what hasn't worked in the past, and what should the new administration be focused on. Now, from that, we will get a lot of insight into some of the things that the candidates will be talking about, and the next president will hopefully work to implement. These discussions are bipartisan, and the folks that are coming to these discussions have influence over the candidates that are running for president. So hopefully we will be in a position to take advantage of the knowledge that we learn here and start to shape our service offerings and our solutions to meet the needs of the future, the requirements that are going to be put out by the next administration. One of the other things that we're seeing is while the Government Performance and Results Act was mandated for the CFO Act organizations, such as, which are 26 department level organizations. Interestingly enough, there are components down below, like CBP is to DHS or food safety is to USDA, weren't necessarily mandated to do the same things that the department level was mandated to do. We're finding that now that that's just happening automatically. They're still not necessarily mandated, but the departments are definitely working to connect all the component levels and have the component levels do the same things as the department level. So we're seeing more and more opportunity at the next level down, such as food safety, such as the Center for Medicaid and Medicare. So we are going to work to capture that market as well. Now, as far as our position within the market is the Performance Institute has, and several of our staff have solid working relationships with the folks at the Office of Management and Budget and the Performance Improvement Council, which is the arm of the administration that helps manage these mandates. So we can actively pick up the phone and call the folks up at OMB to talk to them about what's going on or what's not going on. And they spoke at our recent conference, which I'll get into in a second. And so we have a very good working relationship with them. And we often go to them to find out what their needs are, how we can help them. And they do view us as one of the few organizations totally focused on improving performance in government. That's been the longstanding view of the Performance Institute, and by virtue, as we build out this capacity, that will spread to Robbins-Joya. The Performance Institute is a recognized brand among performance improvement officers and performance analysts. And the Performance Institute has been around for 15 years. So when Robbins-Joya acquired the Performance Institute, that is still a brand, and they kept that brand separate because it is a recognized brand in this constituency. So, so there's a lot going on in this area, and there's a lot of things that organizations are required to do, and we're in a pretty good position to help them with it. That said, we have to continually build out our capacity and capability, which this practice is all about. So some of the other current activities and market trends that we see in this, so there's legislative drivers, and this is how it's coming out in some of the activities that we're seeing. A move towards making decisions with more data. This is something we've all wanted in government for many, many years. And OMB is forcing organizations to actually use data to make decisions through two techniques that are called strategic reviews and stat reviews. Strategic reviews are looking more at the overall outcomes that a department is trying to achieve. Stat reviews are a little bit more operational of how did we do last month on the things that we were trying to do, where strategic reviews are, is this initiative really getting us towards that outcome that we're trying to drive? But all of it is based on data. And there's been a lot of emphasis on transparency and data over the last several years. A new thing that's coming out is evidence-based policy making, where they really want to have the data behind why we're making certain policies. So there's a big push towards that across government and even in Congress. there's a real push to link day-to-day activities to the outcomes that we're trying to achieve for the taxpayer. For instance, VA is right now really pushing to improve customer service to the veteran. And right now they are working very hard to clearly link every single solitary activity and saying, how does that impact the customer experience or the veteran experience when they interact with VA? So we're seeing more and more of that. And that is the Performance Institute uses a technique called the logic model. It's actually not something that we own per se, but it's just a technique that's out there and heavily used in program evaluation. And we really utilize that to help organizations relate their day-to-day activities to the outcomes to their outputs and then the outcomes that they're trying to achieve. So that's something that the Performance Institute has been known for, and so we're getting a lot of play in that area. Another thing that we're seeing is a big push towards cross-agency goals, and you'll see in OMB A11 that OMB has actually created, I think it's 15 cross-agency priority goals for the government. So for instance, cybersecurity is one of the cross-agency priority goals for all of government. This is not just an issue for one organization, and they didn't want everybody to get stovepiped into their own organizations doing this, so they created this cross-agency goal. Another cross-agency goal is around customer service, because across the board, people have issues in dealing with government. So those cross-agency goals are driving collaboration across departments and organizations and helping to eliminate redundant activities as well. So that is a current push. This administration took on a way to evaluate program performance, and by program you could say it was Medicaid program or the food safety program, for instance. Under the last administration, they used a tool called a Program Assessment Rating Tool, PART. This administration came in and said, wait a second, why did we have to create a second tool when government has, for years used program evaluation for that? And they went more towards building the capacity and capability of program evaluation organizations and linking them to the strategy organizations. So we're seeing more and more with that as well. We're seeing a lot of activities to put results out to the stakeholders and the public, a lot of transparency pushing. Obviously, this has been, evaluating employee performance has been an issue for government for a long time, and, as well as private sector. So a lot of this, applies in the public sector as well. I've been saying government, but I don't mean to leave out our commercial folks. So this is one where over time you'll see us working with the human capital practice to pull this together, but linking the outcomes that the organization wants to achieve to what the activities that an employee does and how they do it. So there's a lot more push on that in the market. Tying your budget request to program performance has been an ongoing struggle for years, and there's still opportunity there for a lot of improvement because people really haven't figured out how to do it yet. This administration has been using benchmarking across back office functions to drive performance improvement and efficiencies and effectiveness. So there's been a big push for benchmarking. We see a continued automation of performance measurement systems as a lot of when Government Performance and Results Act first started out, a lot of this stuff was being done manually. And so over the years, there's been a big push for automation. And then one of the really interesting things for Robbins-Joya in particular is we're seeing a big push towards integrating risk management and enterprise architecture with strategic planning. And if you look at OMB A11, they actually, in Part 6, which is about performance management, there's one little paragraph that actually talks about enterprise architecture and strategic planning. We are trying to work towards getting out in front of that as people recognize the linkage between the two disciplines. So how has our market evolved? You know, the capacity and capability within government is improving, and they are where the Performance Institute used to be a key training provider and still is. The Performance Improvement Council is actively working to build the capacity and capability within government as well, and is offering internal training. This drives us to look towards maybe some of the organizations at the state and local level that don't have the wherewithal to do that. And this pushes us to also continue to innovate our training and our services so that we can stay ahead of the market. We are seeing that historically stovepipe disciplines such as budget, performance planning, enterprise architecture, and risk management are being combined. For instance, at the Center for Medicaid and Medicare, they've just combined the strategy function with the enterprise architecture function. So we're seeing that. We think they're a little out ahead of everybody else, but I think that that's going to be an ongoing opportunity. The market has evolved from the Government Performance and Results Act to the Modernization Act. The Modernization Act got folks to get away from having 1 million measures to having a few key measures, which they call agency priority goals. We don't want, people were creating so many measures, it was, unmanageable. They added the cross-agency goals that I've already talked about, and they drove, the Modernization Act drove towards the strategic reviews supported by performance data. And one of the interesting things that they had to mandate was that the heads of agencies or departments had to be involved in those discussions. In the past, a lot of times they said, chief of staff, that's you, and it's not. They mandated that the senior folks have to be in these discussions. And we see a big push to working to improve strategy execution and not make strategic plans just something that lay on used as a doorstop. So we're seeing more and more that they want to use strategic plans to make decisions, tough decisions, and drive activities. So there is a lot going on in this market, and it's not going to go away. It's going to continue to evolve, and we have to continue to evolve with it. Some of the tools in this market, we are doing, ongoing research here. I don't have, necessarily who's the leader in this market, because there are a lot of tools, and there's a lot of, the big players, the SAPs, the Oracles also have tools. But we are looking to partner, and we haven't created any agreements at this point in time, but we're looking at where it might make sense for us to partner with some of these tool providers. And so we're talking right now to the list here, Information Builders, which seems to focus a little bit more on internal performance management, Socrata, which is focused on external reporting to the taxpayers and such. iDashboard and Tableau are doing a lot with visualization and dashboarding. ClearPoint Strategy definitely has a bent towards the balanced scorecard. But this is an area, I've given us a red here because there's a lot more that we need to do in this area. So moving on to customer-facing initiatives. Right now, our current clients that include an element of strategic performance management are listed on this page. Totaling to about 1.4 million this year of work. As we move forward, what we want to do is work with all the industries to embed some of these capabilities and competencies within larger opportunities. So these are all smaller opportunities, but we hope over time that we can expand this. Now, one of the things that I've actually given us a green on is customer-facing initiatives. The Performance Institute has always been out in the market providing conferences, training, policy forums, research. And so while there's still a lot more we could do here, we are doing a number of things, and we just finished up our annual Government Performance Summit where we had 400 attendees, all focused on performance management, and 2 days of speakers from all over government, so all government experts in the area of performance. So this community of performance folks really know that this is one conference that they can come to every year and find out what's going on in performance management. We had speakers from OMB, GAO, and several government organizations. So we feel that we got very good reviews this year for the conference, and we're working on a number of leads that have come out from folks that we talked to and met at that conference. Another area, I mentioned the Transitions in Governments Policy Forums. The first policy forum on performance management was May 6th. Our next one is on data transparency and governance, which is going to be, I think, July 24th. We will be doing about 8 or 9 of these before the next presidential election to help build that potential agenda for management reform. And we'll be publishing documents and papers along the way to get to these candidates and help shape the agenda, the next agenda for the next president. Another policy forum that we are doing is around nationwide public safety broadband network. And in this case, we're working particularly with Alan Carpenter's group, the civilian and state and local industry, and helping to shape solutions around the implementation of the nationwide public safety broadband network. This is a huge opportunity to help folks in the public safety arena, and we want to make sure that they're taking advantage of this and that they can implement it as fast as possible. So we are helping to try to raise their awareness around this new initiative across the nation. We've had one event there, and our next event is June 10th. We are also doing thought leadership on a regular basis, providing webinars through, we are working to build our own webinar capability as well, but right now we've been partnering to do it with the Association of Government Accountants. John Dessenberg, our policy director and performance management expert, has recently done a webinar there. Stu Liff has done, who is one of our Performance Institute fellows, has done webinars as well and is slated to do some in the near future. We are getting, Stu Liff is going to do a series of articles in Government Executive around performance management in government. Stu worked in government for 35 years and is an author of 5 books on government performance management. And really has some great techniques and stories to share regarding his experience in improving performance within government. It's pretty interesting stuff. And we regularly do blogs as well. So we're doing a lot. We could do a lot more, and we're working to do a lot more, but we are out in the market and known in the market. In addition, we do training, and we have the PI Training Center, which has just recently moved to Roslyn or Clarendon. We are working to offer training from all the practices across Robbins-Joya through the Performance Institute. Here I'm listing just the ones focused on the strategic performance management practice. But we're going to be working across all the practices to offer training. And while these are publicly offered training courses, anyone within Robbins-Joya can sign up and take them as well. So consider them internally focused as well, and you just become part of the audience there as we do these courses. And we're continually, this is a yellow, partially because we're continually working to evolve and make sure our courses are relevant and timely with the content. But in addition, we are trying to attract more people to come to our courses. So we're doing a lot of work on having a training course, but having no one come to it is only so helpful. So we are working to increase our enrollment in the training courses. So moving on to still under customer-facing initiatives, but sales support activities. We are working actively to support all the various practice areas. And so we have recently done, and I don't even have it on here, some proposals with commercial. We've done a lot of proposals with the civilian agencies, state and local, and working to also help the defense industry as well. So working across the board, and here's just a listing of some of the things that we have underway right now. And hopefully we will capture all of these opportunities. Moving forward into key ongoing internal programs. So what are we doing to help build the capacity and capability within Robbins-Joya? And as all the practices are doing, we will be doing internal brown bags, and I've listed a number of topics here and some tentative dates. If there's, as the audience out there, if there's a topic that you'd like to hear from us that maybe we don't have on here, just shoot me an email and we can work that in, or maybe change one of these out if you think there's something else that folks would rather hear about that would be helpful to you on the ground as you're providing your services to your customers. And we can work to do that to help build that capacity within the organization. We're actively enhancing training material, as I've mentioned. We are developing a one-day benchmarking course because the government is doing so much in benchmarking and we're really performance experts. We felt that we needed to have a course that talked about that. And then after we finalize the services, we are going to be looking at the previously developed solutions around strategic performance management, which this would be our outward market-facing solutions, and we're going to be revamping those as well. And so you'll hear us talk about those as well as we move forward. As far as employee education and development, as I mentioned, we are working to certify all the PI staff first, but anyone that is interested in getting that certification as well, we'd be glad to work with you to get you enrolled in the proper classes over the, whatever time frame to get that certification. The more folks that we have within Robbins-Joya, the better. Annual conferences that we actively attend to make sure not only do we know what's going on in the market, but we also speak at these conferences as well, and we hear what other folks are doing as well. So we train ourselves, but we gather market intelligence and do business development as well for all of these courses. And In particular, we have a great partnership with the Association of Government Accountants, and they co-sponsor the Government Performance Summit annually. So we do that jointly with them, but we also attend their national leadership training and their professional development training on a yearly basis, if possible. The National Center for Public Performance, which is really out of Rutgers University, tries to position itself for the state and local level, and they offer a certified public manager certification, which seems to appeal more to state and local and has some limitations, but we kind of consider them a competitor as well, so we always go to their conference to make sure we're staying on top of what they're doing and making sure we're mapping to it or doing something markedly different to stay differentiated. And now that we've won some work in the past, we haven't gone to the American Evaluation Association, but because of the USAID contract and what's going on in the market around evaluation, that's a target event for us now as well. RG staff regularly does attend the Performance Institute training, and over the last 2 years, we've had 98 class attendees attending 21 separate courses and workshops. And we want to continue to do that. This is definitely an arm of the internal capacity building within RG. So feel free to always reach out around our courses. So we have some work to do. You know, we have a lot of yellows and reds and lots more work to do. But as far as the things that are most impactful to you, we're going to really start on the brown bags in July and offer several brown bags over the last course of the year. And we'll have to work with Lindsay to get those appropriately scheduled. So you know, lots more activity to come. We're really just getting our practice up and running, and we hope to interact with all of you more as we move forward. So what are some of the risks that we see in this? Very quickly is we unfortunately have recently lost a contract vehicle where every organization could come to us in this area pretty easily. And so that's a risk. You know, people, when they want this work, want to get to us quickly, as most of our work. So we are working to find new contract vehicles and new avenues in. Another risk is that we are not adequately connected to the other RG industry and practice areas. Just when you merge something in or merge an organization in, it takes a while to coalesce its linkages, and we need to do a lot more with that. For instance, the PI staff don't even show up on the bench report for folks to say, hey, can I use that person? They're predominantly billable, but there is some capacity there that could be used in other ways. So we're going to work to do that. Continue to provide the internal education, brown bags, and such to ensure that we better link this practice to all of RG. The PI team has limited institutional knowledge about RG, so and about PI. So we are rebuilding PI, and so a lot of us don't know that PI did X, Y, and Z, you know, 5 years ago, or we had this capacity or capability 5 years ago, and we have this qual. So one of the things that we're doing is all the PI consultants are team teaching with John Dessenberg, who has been here for over 10 years to absorb institutional knowledge around the things that PI has done in the past. In addition, we actually brought back the founder of PI, Carl DeMaio, as a PI fellow who brings a tremendous, well, all the institutional knowledge around what PI did in the past and how they did it, and to help us not take advantage of the past history in PI. We believe we're missing opportunities through lack of marketing intelligence, and so we're working with RG's new organization, RGov Access, to improve visibility into what's going on in the market and some of the RFPs that are out there that include strategic performance management. Right now, we've just been catching things that come to us through partners or that we create ourselves through relationships. So I think there's a lot more that we could do there. And then our training programs need to be refreshed. So we're working to make sure we're aligning them with the trending topics. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions for the last couple minutes.
Okay, everybody is unmuted, so if anybody has a question, feel free to ask. If you are not asking a question, I ask that you please mute your phone. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay. So, Tiffany, I'm going to, you can probably mute again. Okay. I'm going to assume that no one has questions, but anyone feel free to reach out via email or phone to myself, Shelley Rappaport, or Tom DeBrittany, or any of the PI resources such as John Dethenberg and the PI Fellows, and we will help however we can if your clients need help or you have any questions. So thank you for your time today, and I hope to connect with each of you at some point in time in the future.
Great. Thanks,
any closing comments? Okay, Tiffany. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.